Hello, welcome to our class. For today, we are going to continue with topic 2. Now, we are going to answer the question, what are the categories of exceptionalities among children with youth with special needs? Are you ready? So, for the first category of exceptionalities among children and youth with special needs is what you call mental retardation. It refers to the substantial limitations in present functioning. It is characterized by significantly sub-average intellectual functioning existing concurrently with related limitations in two or more of the following applicable adaptive skill areas. For example, communication, self care, home living, social skills, community use, self direction, health and safety, functional academics, leisure and work. Now, when we talk about mental retardation, it manifests before age 18 from the American Association of Mental Retardation, 1992. Okay, now let's proceed to the second category. This is what you call giftedness and talent. It refers to high performance in intellectual, creative, or artistic areas, unusual leadership capacity, and excellence in specific academic field. Giftedness refers to the traits of above average general abilities, high level task commitment, and creativity. Giftedness emphasizes talent as the primary defining characteristic. Now, when we talk about giftedness, it shows in superior memory, observational powers, curiosity, creativity, and ability to learn. Now we are done with the second category. Let's proceed to the third category. That's what we call specific learning disability. It means a disorder in one or more of the basic psychological processes involved in understanding or in using language, spoken or written, which may manifest itself in an imperfect ability to listen, think, speak, read, or spell, or to do mathematical calculations. The term includes such as conditions as perceptual handicaps, brain injury, minimal brain dysfunction, dyslexia, and developmental aphasia. The term does not include children who have learning problems, which are primarily the result of visual, hearing, or motor handicaps, of mental retardation, of environmental, cultural, or economic disadvantages. Now let's proceed to the fourth one. The term emotional and behavioral disorders means a condition exhibiting one or more of the following characteristics over a long period of time and to a marked degree which adversely affects educational performance. Includes an inability to learn which cannot be explained by intellectual, sensory, and health factors, um, an inability to build or maintain satisfactory interpersonal relationships with peers and teachers. Also, inappropriate type of behavior or feelings under normal circumstances. Next, we have a general persuasive mood of happiness or depression, or a tendency to develop physical symptoms or fears associated personal or school problems. The term includes the term includes children who are autistic. The term does not include children who are socially maladjusted unless it is determine that they are seriously emotionally disturbed. Next, we talk about speech and language disorders or communication disorders. When the impact that a communication pattern has on a person's life meets any one of the following criteria. We have the transmission and or um, perception of messages is faulty. The person is placed at an economic disadvantage. The person is placed at a learning disadvantage. And there is a negative impact on the person's emotional growth. Also, the problem causes physical damage or endangers the truth of the health, of the person. Okay, now let's proceed to health. Let's proceed to the hearing impairment. Hearing impairment is a generic term that includes hearing disabilities ranging from mild to profound, thus encompassing children who are deaf and those who are hard of hearing. A person who is deaf is not able to use hearing to understand speech, although he or she may perceive some sounds. Even with a hearing aid, the hearing loss is too great to allow a deaf person to understand speech throughout the ears alone. A person who is hard of hearing has a significant hearing losses that make some special adaptations necessary. So next one, we will talk about students with visual impairment. It displays a wide range of visual disabilities from total blindness to relatively good residential vision. There is a visual restriction of sufficient severity that interferes with normal progress in a regular educational program with modification. A child who is blind is totally without sight or has so little vision that he or she learns primarily through the other senses, such as to touch, to read Braille. A child with low vision is able to learn through the visual channel and generally learns to read print. Now let's proceed to the physical impairment. Before physical impairment, let's have severe dis physical impairment. I'm sorry. So physical impairments may be orthopedic impairments that involve the skeletal skeletal system, the bones, joints, limbs, and associated muscles. Or they mean neurological impairments that involve the nervous system affecting the ability to move, use, feel, or control certain parts of the body. Health impairments include chronic illnesses that is they are present over long periods and tend not to get better or disappear. Now last we will talk about the severe disabilities. It is generally encompasses individuals with severe and profound intellectual, physical, and social functioning because of their physical, mental, or emotional problems, or a combination of such problems. They need to highly specialized educational, social, psychological, and medical services beyond those which are traditionally offered by regular and special education programs in order to maximize their potential for useful and meaningful participation in society and for self fulfillment. Children and youth with severe disabilities include those who are seriously emotional disturbed, autistic, profoundly and severe. mentally retarded, deaf blind, mentally retarded blind, and cerebral palsy deaf. Labels and names that were derogatory were used in the past to describe people with physical deformities, mental retardation, and behavioral problems. These terms that are not used anymore are imbecile, moron, idiot, mental deficient, and even mute and dumb. They are not acceptable and they are inappropriate describe person who manifests speech and language problems as a result of deafness. Now, let's proceed to the next one. Is it correct to use disability category labels? Okay. Now, there are 2 points of view regarding the use of labels to describe children and youth with disabilities. The first point of view frowns on labeling these children are mentally retarded, learning disabled, emotionally disturbed, socially maladapted, blind, deaf, or physically disabled. Use of disability labels calls attention to the disability itself and overlook the more important and positive characteristics of the person. These negative labels cause the spread phenomenon to permeate the mind of able-bodied person. This, I'm sorry for that. So let's continue. These negative labels cause the spread phenomenon to permeate the mind of the able-bodied persons. The disability becomes the major influence in the development of preconceived ideas that tend to be negative and as helplessness, dependence, and doomed to a life of hopelessness. The truth is, persons with disabilities are first and foremost human beings who have the same physical and psychological needs like everybody else. They need to belong, to be loved, to be useful, and most especially to be respected. Now let's proceed to the second and less popular point of view is that it is necessary to use workable disability category labels in order to describe the exceptional learning needs for systematic provision of special education services. Nevertheless, decades of research and debates on the issue have not arrived at any conclusive resolution of labeling problems. A number of pros and cons have been advanced by various specialists and educators. Okay, now we have here pros and possible benefits of labeling. So first is categories can relate diagnosed to specific types of education and treatment. We have here labeling may lead to protective response in which children are more accepting. And next we have labeling helps professionals communicate. Also, we have funding of special education program is often based on specific categories of exceptionality. Next, we have labels enable disability specific advocate groups to promote specific programs. And last benefit of labeling is it helps make exceptional children special needs more visible. So we are done with the benefits. So what are the cons or the possible disadvantages of labeling? So we have here number one, because labels usually focus on disability, impairment, and performance deficits, some people may think only in terms of what the individual cannot do instead of what he or she or might be able to learn to do. Labels may cause other may cause others to hold low expectations for to differentially treat a child on the basis of the label, which may result to self-fulfilling proficiency. For example, in one study, student teachers gave a child labels or labeled autistic more praise and rewards and less verbal correction for incorrect response than gave a child labeled normal. Such differential treatment could hamper a child's acquisition of new skills and contribute to the development and maintenance of a level of performance consistent with labels prediction. Next, we have labels that describe a child may develop poor self-content. Also, label a special education labels have a certain permanence. Once labeled, it is difficult for a child to ever again achieve the status of simply being just another kid. Labels often provide a basis for keeping children out of the regular classroom. And we have a proportionate number of children from diverse culturally, ethnic, and linguistic groups have been inaccurately labeled as disabled, especially under the category mild mental retardation. So we are done with the pros and cons of labeling. Now, let's proceed to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act of America. So, in the United States, there is a powerful law, what we call blockbuster legislation, that was enacted in 1975. This is what you call Public Law 94-142, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act of America, or we could simply say it IDEA, has changed the America education system. It is affected every school in the country and has changed the roles of the regular and special education teachers, school administrators, parents, and others in the educational system. The idea is comprehensive legislation regarding the education of children with disabilities. The law clearly reflects the concern of society for citizens with disabilities to be treated like other citizens with the same rights and privileges. The major provision of IDEA states that all children with disability who are between in the ages of 3 to 21, regardless of the type or severity of their disabilities, shall receive a free appropriate public education. All children with disabilities shall be located and identified. Six major principles shall be followed in organizing and implementing special education programs. As you can see here in our screen, first is what we call zero project. So in zero project, schools must enroll every child regardless of the nature or severity of his or her disabilities. No child with disability may excluded from a public education. Next, we will be having the non-discriminatory testing. Schools must use non-biased, multi-factored methods of evaluation to determine whether a child has a disability, and if so, whether special education is needed. Testing and evaluation procedures must not discriminate on the basis of race, culture, even native language. All tests must be administered in the child's native language, and identification and placement decisions must not made on the basis of single test score. Now we have appropriate education. In appropriate education, school must develop and implement an individualized education program. Now, for each student with disability. The IEP must be individually designed to meet the child's unique needs. Okay, so let's proceed to next one. Let's proceed to least restrictive environment. So schools must educate students with disabilities with children who do not have disabilities to the maximum extent possible. Next, we will be having the due process. Schools must provide safeguards to protect the right of children with disabilities and their parents by ensuring due process, confidentiality of records, and parental involvement in educational planning and placement decision. So last is parent participation. It is important that the schools must collaborate with the parents of students with disabilities in the design and implementation of special education services and programs. So that's it. So that's the end of our video. So I hope every one of you will be to uh able to learn those things that we have today. So thank you everyone. So see you in the next video. Have a nice day everyone. Goodbye.